What's up guys, welcome back to the channel, and today we're going to be working on the Genesis. It's about time. We did like four videos for his car already. So we're back to the Genesis, and what we're going to be doing today is installing the Eibach lowering springs, the Sportline kit, and it's about time. I have about almost 4 fingers in the back here. That's 2.5 inches, and in the front I have about 3 fingers, which is about 2 1/4. So these springs are going to lower me, the website said about 1.4 inches, so I'm assuming it's going to be between 1.25 inches and 1.5 inches. First thing we're going to be doing is jacking up the car, taking off the wheels, and one more thing, off of Gen Racer once again. Can't go wrong with Gen Racer, boys. If you have a Genesis, hit them up. My hands are dirty because we did the other side already, because I didn't want to do this side and record for you guys and not know what I was doing. So the other side, the other front is done rather, and now I'm going to do this side on video for you guys. So we're going to be taking off 4 bolts on this side. You have the one up here all the way in the back, 19 millimeters right here, and then you're going to be taking off the bolt that holds the brake line on. This small little guy right here is a 12 millimeter. And then you have the 2 up front, which is going to be the most pain in the butt because they were like kind of rusted on there and they're like really hard to break. Alright, so on the bolt side, this is going to be a 17 millimeter, and then on the nut side, this is going to be a 19 millimeter. So you might need to do like use 2 ratchets or an impact and a ratchet or whatever. So we're going to do a little time lapse of this and we'll bring you along the way. First thing, 12 millimeter onto the bracket that holds onto the brake line. And then just like that, just throw us off to the side. So when the rotor rotates down this way, you're not pulling on the brake line. And then the next thing you're gonna do is you're gonna do the 19 millimeter up here, and then this over here is just going to come free. And then these 2 are going to be for last. And then your personal preference is by keeping a jack underneath the rotor to help you assist to keep the bolts from bending and having tension on these guys. Alright guys, we got a little Genesis spring video pro tip. We're taking off the 19 back here, but it's tight, so we need a breaker bar or something to break the nut loose. Alright, so here we have the 19 millimeter socket on the ratchet here, but this here isn't enough to break the nut on the other side. So we have, it's like a metal pole. You throw the ratchet in here to get an extension. So it acts as a breaker bar. Now just push down. Wow. Look at that. Now that the nut's broken, just do it by hand now. Alright guys, we have the nut loose. So now it's just a bolt. And this piece, literally, watch, just pull it right out and put it back towards the inner of the car, just so the piece gets out of your way. Right here we have it. It was sitting in. Just pull it out and lay it there so it's not in your way when you're taking out the strut and the spring. Followed by this up here. We're going to do these 2 bolts here, and we're going to need a 17 and a 19 millimeter here. All 4 have been taken off, and now it's just sitting on the bolt, which these are going to be a little annoying to get off. Probably have to use a hammer to break them out, and this is when you got to play with the rotor a little bit to raise it or lower it, so the screw isn't really, the bolt rather, isn't on an angle. It has to be straight at all times as you knock them out. So after these bolts come out, this should be just free and it can come forwards, and then you're going to take the strut out from there. These bolts are off. A little bit of a pain in the butt to do. You have to use a mixture of hitting them out with a hammer along with taking it out with the impact gun or your ratchet, whatever you guys have. But once these are off, I recommend it sitting on the jack so it's not pulling on the brake line or whatever's back there. So once this is off, you're gonna come up here where the strut tower is connected, and you're gonna go ahead and take these off, which are all 14 millimeters, 1, 2, and 3, and do not take this off right now, because if you take this off, you will have a lot of problems. This will come off with the whole strut, and then you will unbolt this when you have the springs compressed. I do not recommend taking this off. Okay, I'm not holding the disc, I'm just holding the strut. Yep. Move on. You might need to knock it out with like a hammer first. Don't do it. Chop. Get it out. Nice. Look at that stock boy. So here we have the stock strut with the stock spring, and this is where your spring compressors come in. I rented these from Advanced Auto Parts, and that's pretty much it. If you guys want to buy it, you guys can buy it, but I just rented it because I don't know when I'm going to be using these ever again. So if you don't want to use these, then go right ahead, don't use them, but that's very dangerous. You might break a finger or your spring might shoot down the block. So do what you guys prefer, but I'm going to be taking this the safe way. So go ahead and put your strut down, and you want to loosen up the compressor to where it fits around your spring. Alright, so once that's on, you go ahead and put the pins in like that, so it really can't go anywhere. And then if you want to, you can just make it hand tight until you can't do it anymore. And now from here, since mine, I don't know if your guys are going to be different, you want to go ahead on the top right here. This is a 19 millimeter. I'm going to be using an impact, but you guys can use a regular socket, ratchet rather, does not matter. So as you do this, wrong way, you're going to see the spring compressed. But you don't want to do one side at once. You want to do this side, and then you want to throw on the other spring compressor on this side, and you want to keep going back and forth because you don't want to have it uneven. Spring is all compressed as much as needed to be done, and as you see now that it's compressed, the top hat is going to be able to spin a little bit. Now this is where it gets a little tricky. This bolt up here holding the spring down, it's a 17 millimeter, but as you loosen this top hat is going to spin. So either grab a friend or someone or somehow clamp it down, and you're going to need this to stay still while you take off the 17 millimeter bolt up top. And as long as this is compressed enough, this thing should not shoot up at all. Special thanks to Ryan in the IS helping out a bit today. Top bolt is now off, so this top hat should just come off free. Wow, just like that. This piece here, you don't want to futz around with this thing at all because you'll just be slapping this right back on. So I'm just gonna put this off to the side. Now this piece right here comes right off, and then this here, you just vice versa. You unscrew both sides one at a time until the spring compressors come off, and then you're gonna be using them again to put back on your new springs. But this piece here, take this off and take this off. If yours came with the new bushings. If yours didn't come with this, then just leave these on, I guess. I'm not too sure. But mine did come with this, so mine's all assembled, right like this. Just throw it on, and then that's pretty much it. Just throw it on like that, and then when your car is up, car is down on it, it's gonna do whatever it wants to do. So now that's on, you're gonna be putting the spring on. This is the front one. If you don't know, there's like a little serial number here, and it says F right there. You can't see it because it's scraped off, but I just know. And you want to make sure the labels, the logo is facing upwards on the spring. I mean on the strut rather. So this just sits down like this, like that. And as you see, where the spring ends, there's like a little bump stop for it. So twist right there. That's where it's stopping. It's gonna sit like this. And to put this the top hat back on, like that, it's not going to fit properly because you're going to need to use the spring compressors once again. When you put the 17 millimeter bolt back up top, you can make it tight, but just don't make it too tight yet because it's going to make it harder to install this back in the car. The top strut piece is all in. These are done. We did not touch this bolt yet, because if you start tightening this one now, it's only going to move the strut down here. So do these first, the outer three, leave that one for last on the top. So like these guys here, we have the two holes that connect this to the strut. This is where it gets a little annoying, and you kind of just gonna have to do your own thing here. Like you could see, like we're very like lenient, we're moving a lot. We move both of these, that's why we left it loose up top too. We're gonna have to move these into place, all of that. You can't really explain what to do. It kind of just happens. You got to get everything going into the right spot. So the first thing we do is we're going to put this one back here, and then fill it in with the nut on the other side. And then we're going to work with the two bottom holes, and then we have the brake line thing right here too. Rotor's back connected to the strut. Put the bolts through. Putting the bolts through is the most annoying part. You might gotta use a hammer so you get the holes to line up for the bolts to go through. I just hurt my finger. So once the bolts are through, go ahead and connect the brake line bracket back onto the rotor right over here. That's a 12mm bolt. And then after that, you want to go ahead and connect these back up. Make sure they're nice and tight. The last thing you're gonna want to do, because you guys already did this was the first thing you were supposed to do. And after these bolts are tight, you want to go back up to the top where the top hat is. You want to go ahead and just make sure this is nice and snug. This is going to be a 17mm, by the way. After this is done, go ahead, put your piece back on. Alright, back passenger is done. We just did that off camera. Now we're going to be doing back driver. Seemed easier than the front because you don't got to take out the strut here. The only thing you got to do is you got to take off this back bolt right here, 17mm right there, and then you have two down here, which is the same ones that were up in the front, which is 17mm, and then a 19mm on the other side. And what that's gonna do is that's gonna release the strut from inside here. Gonna release the strut, and then the front bolt here is gonna be releasing the rotor. And then from there, you're gonna be able to pull down on this support arm here, pull that down, which is gonna allow the spring to just pop out. And no, it shouldn't shoot out. You do not need the spring compressor down here. The first step for this is the 17mm one in the back. Should come off fairly easy. Just throw the impact on here. Now from the back we have the back nut off. Now we're moving forward to the two nut and bolts up here. On the nut side, right here we're looking at the bolt side, but on the nut side, so now you're looking at the side with the nut, and on the side with the nut you're going to want to use a 19mm socket wrench, unless you have a ratchet that is tall enough to get back there. But here we have it, the 19mm socket wrench, and we're just going to throw that over here. I use the impact 19mm again, right on this side. We also recommend putting a jack on the support arm here, so that when these screws, when the bolts and the nuts come out, it doesn't just drop and jank all your bolts. Alright guys, we have the two bolts and nuts out now, but now we're going to lower the jack and also put the bolts back into the holes so we could use them as leverage. But you don't want to put it through the hole and the strut, you just want to put it through just the control arm part. Move the strut real quick. All the way in, just like that. Now I'm going to grab the other one and literally, see the rotors up here? Just slide it in. Because we're going to use these bolts as leverage when pulling down the actual control arm itself. I can't see here, but it's going to work something. Thank you, Chris. You can see I can't. Something like that. And we're just going to push the control arm down. And once we have it pushed down enough, we are going, so the control arm comes from here downwards, and we can just wiggle the spring and pull the spring out. mount and an eye mount. Okay, I hope I'm in this. Now this piece here, you're going to be reusing this top piece here and the bottom piece, so don't get rid of these unless your springs came with these top and bottom pieces, but in my case they didn't. Here's the stock spring and here's the aftermarket spring, and once again logo's facing up, so it's good to sit in your car like this. So I'm gonna lay this down like that. This top piece, please don't roll away, thank you. This top piece just untwists like that, and you're gonna see it has like a little groove for the spring to sit in. Like it's literally as simple. You probably can't see it in the video, but it just pops in and just slides in. There's like a little bump stop for this to stop at. So this is the top piece right here. You can just set that down. And now the bottom piece on the stock one, it's literally just comes right out. And once again, it's like it'll fit the bottom of this. Literally just slides right into place. It's probably not going to stay because it's not on the top, but there is a groove for it, so just like that. And then make sure the logos are facing up, and you're just going to throw it right back in the car the same way you took out the stock one. Now we're just going to, I'm going to push back the control arm back down, and he's just going to pop the spring right back into place the same way it came out. Once the spring is back into place, you're going to go ahead and put the bolts back in, but we're going to do it a little bit different than the way we took them out. So the first bolt you're going to be putting back in, after you take these back out, because these were just for leverage, you're going to put this one in first, right here, and then you're going to move back, so the bolt back here, you're going to put that one in, and then this is going to be the last one that you put in. Everything's back in, everything is all tightened up, this is done, spring looks nice in there. As you can see, it sits nice and snug in there. And I recommend just going back to each wheel, each rotor rather, each spring. Just make sure everything's in there, make sure you put everything back where it's supposed to go, because this is pretty crucial to your car. If you screw something up, it's going to be an issue. So we're going to throw my wheels back on there, tighten them down. We're going to bring it back down to the floor. Wheels are back on. It's still up on the jack stands. When we lower it down off of the jack stands and take them off, whatever the height is, it may not be the most accurate height yet because the springs are still tight and there really isn't a lot of weight on them. So when the car drops down, it might drop a little bit more the more time the springs are on the car. The car's been settling for about an hour now. In the front, I have just about 2 fingers in the front. It was originally like 3.25 in the front, and it's now down to 1.5 inches. So it's about 1.5 inch drop over in the back. It was originally 3.5 inches, which is now down to like 2.25 to 2 inches roughly. So it did work. It did drop the car. It's not slammed as you would have with coils, but I wasn't trying to be slammed. I'm not trying to scrape everywhere. I still like going to 7-Eleven. So I'm going to show you guys what it looks like around the car, and that's pretty much it, guys. Have any questions? Put it down in the comments. Peace.